have written, if those are the reasons you as journalists have written.
I got a job at the Institute for Primate Research. But eventually, when an opportunity came up, I first got a job in Standard newspaper, outbreak in Kenya. By then it was Professor Samon who was, he will be helping us on the science desk. Then the following year, was you know them, the CNNs, you know, for segment, and others. So my friends became doctors. I want to see content coming out of these discussions, so that then the 2 or 3, 4 who will be interested in some of these matters we are spending time and resources on. We are not so much interested in journalists who just want to come and complain about how journalism is bad, about how poor pay, how much are they paying today. No, those routine things. And that's why some of you will find yourself in sometimes more training than others, because we have seen focus and interest in growth. Because we are not a university ourselves, so we get small partnerships with colleagues which want to utilize the best way. So like here, the evaluation of tests of the impact of this training will not be about.
I feel like sometimes you want people now to go the bloggers, the propagandists way, because that's what you're now selling. Yeah? The crude stories, the crazy stories. But as Bure clearly put it, that science is science. And science is fact. And fact, even the sun rises from the east to the west. You can choose not to accept it, but that's a fact. Isn't there? There were times when people talked about the earth being round, they got jailed because they were like, the earth is flat. But the fact of the matter is that the earth is round. So today we'll talk about some few facts of science about this pandemic and the vaccine thereof. Yeah? So, number one, I've heard about the reasons why people are not taking the vaccine, and I've also been able to listen to some of the myths. We'll talk about those myths later on. But I just like when we began the training, we start with the facts so that we all know the truth. So that when we know the truth, when we hear the lies, we know the lies, right? We are still fresh. Let's talk of some of those few facts. The fact of the matter is that COVID virus existed and the pandemic is real. Because I saw somebody the other day on Twitter claiming that it's just a hoax all along. They said that, you still believe in COVID. They're all lies. But we all know somebody who knows somebody who died. If not at a personal level. For me, I have so many of people, from cousins to uncles to friends to colleagues, who fell ill and died. And I'm sure that out of those 5,600, that sometimes we think are just numbers, the true families that are grieving. Yeah? People who could have been here today, they could have died of anything else, maybe in their 80s and 90s, if COVID never came to this world. But today they are dead. And the biggest tragedy that for our setup, like in Kenya and in Africa, is that most of those deaths were pretty young people. In the West, the numbers are big, but they're mostly the older. Yeah? Over here, there are pretty young people in their 40s, 50s. Now, if you look at the data of the age distribution of the COVID deaths around here, they're pretty young people. By young, 50s young, 60s young. Then you go Africa and you're 50-year-old, 60-year-old in Mzee. But they're middle-aged people. Get that? Number two is that scientists sat in a lab and looked for this vaccine. Almost one of the fastest developed vaccines ever. Yeah? And they brought the facts, the drug, and we still have people still arguing about the fact that the vaccine saves lives. Oh, they want to kill us. Oh, it causes erectile dysfunction. All these things. As in, there's so many ways to kill somebody that I don't think they had to invest in a vaccine to kill us. See, from day one when people are born, we are given those polio vaccines. How come that you can trust the vaccine when you have a newborn, a child? Your most favorite of things you own in this world, your baby. Yet when it comes out to a vaccine, we want to start believing all these theories and stories. So this vaccine was here to help us, and that's for a fact. And I know for sure that those who got the vaccine, the first, second, booster dose and all that, they are alive. Those with older parents and people with comorbidities can say that, yeah, they are here today because of the vaccine. I know of a brother-in-law who said that, no, first of all, my uncle who said that he was waiting for the Johnson. It was coming around August. So I told him, go get the vaccine. He was like, no, I'm waiting for the single dose. I think he got, on the last week of July, he got the virus and he died. Yeah? So those are things that, facts that are there today. There are those who refuse to take the vaccine, going to argue, oh, ni story, this is just money-making ventures. Yeah, and they died. So let us go there, tell people that this vaccine is here to help and it saves lives, and we should take it without ever having to worry about all those many stories that the liars, because I call them liars, because when you know you have no authority on something and you want to give an opinion on that thing, you're a liar. And sadly, that those who believe it, those stories, and it now behoves as people who come from a position of influence, you and the microphone and the might of the pen, to dispel those lies. Yeah? Beyond the nice stories that are selling, that responsibility, that one single thing that you can say that you can do as a journalist, beyond just reporting what sells. Sawa. And those vaccines are available. And there was this debate about which is the best vaccine. Because they all take Pfizer, take Moderna. Oh no, Sinopharm from China is bad. Vaccines work the same way. What's a vaccine, first of all? A vaccine is just a weakened form of that disease. Yeah? They give you a bit of it in a weakened form to stimulate your body to start producing cells that can fight the infection when it happens. That's the primary and the simplest way I can explain what a vaccine is. So there's no other way that you can say that this is superior to this and all that. They might have, even when you take your kids to the clinics, now as middle class, they're baby friendly, all those things you are taught. Yeah, my baby, I will take the Kanjo kind of vaccine. We go get the baby friendly one, they're 10 times the price, but they're the same thing. That's the fact of the matter. So all vaccines are same. The best vaccine you can take is a vaccine near you. That's how they say it. What's available. Don't ever say that I'll come next month when this one comes. Because sadly, like my uncle, you might never make it before that vaccine arrives. They're available. The data from which are there. They got so many, almost 30 million vaccines. Some of them have been thrown away for expiring. But sadly, we are not seeing the numbers. Initially, guys really got the numbers, but we are not now going for the vaccination because of some few myths that I'll dispel later. But for now, number one, the fact of the matter is that COVID is still here. That's a fact. People are still dying. The numbers may be underreported. They might look low to you, but they're human beings. If it was you who died, it would still be as painful as somebody else. So let's tell our people, the seventh wave is projected to be peak around 26th of December. Before you go home, make sure that your aging parents and relatives are all vaccinated so that we protect them. Take that message home. Number one. Number two is that people have said that, oh, COVID is just like a flu. Yeah? You sneeze it away. There's like a flu wave that has been going around. Yeah? And people are not getting tested because people are scared of knowing that probably not will come out. It might look like a flu because of the symptoms that we all know. The runny nose, the sneezing, joint fever and all that. But it's not your ordinary flu. Ultimately, flu in our setup, we recover. But sometimes with COVID, you might not die, but the sequelae, yeah, the COVID lung, the fibrosis, yeah, the clots, you end up paralyzed, the strokes and all that, yeah. So there are facts of the matter that is not a routine flu. Some people say, oh, when you take alcohol, it will sanitize you, yeah, pombe. Some guys say lemon, ginger. See, guys have heard all that. If those things could cure, I think my uncle would be alive. Because that guy used to have a whole thermos of ginger and lemon, eh? They don't work. The theories about chloroquine, ivermectin, you know, and can Trump push for that. Sadly, those influential people are pushing for those stories. When they fall sick themselves, they don't get those drugs. And why we have to work very hard as a team to ensure that we dispel these myths, because while the American has that luxury of refusing the vaccines and all that, because the health system will handle that. What about you don't have oxygen in the hospitals? Yeah? So I talk to you guys about death is death, but when it happens to the less privileged, we should worry more. COVID is COVID, but when it strikes here, where we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough oxygen concentrators or enough medicine, we are in bigger trouble. When you have to sell that single cow, that single land to go pay for that ICU bed, we are in trouble. And that's why, as much as the numbers are not as crazy as in the West, we have to worry about the smallest of them, the least of the numbers. Yeah? In a country where we have competing needs, when we started, COVID came and we had to shift certain budgets to quota for it, the other part of the things, economy suffers. And that's why it must prick our conscience when we sit back and we have drugs in the stores and we're not stepping up the numbers because no longer fashionable to talk about it. All guys are saying that, don't raise that story. You'll make the economy be shut and we have to get that. Our work is to push for those stories, the ones that are just about the stories that are less fashionable. The other fact of the matter is that the COVID vaccine was never created as a family planning. I've heard people say that, Wazungu are just trying to control population. These are laced contraceptive. They said the same with the tetanus, right? Yeah, the ones that was a debate about tetanus vaccine to pregnant women. So I can tell that the people just sit back and just come with stories. It's a uongo. Yeah? If you wanted to give contraceptives, they make them and tell you, yes, these are contraceptives. It's called X-Depo. This is called Mirena. They don't have to lie about it. The processes of getting a vaccine approved is so rigorous that they even give you the reporting mechanism, because you all agree that nothing can be perfect. That will be those side effects, right? And there are mechanisms of reporting it. People refusing to take vaccine that, utakufa, so and so took it and died, or became more sick. But COVID will also probably kill you before that vaccine kills you. Yeah? So there are those issues that came up, and there's a way of reporting it, but I'm sure that the benefit was way, way better than some of the reported adverse effects. It does not cause erectile dysfunction. I had men saying, the vaccine, when you take it, you can't get an erection. See, you guys heard about that? But how many other people still suffer the same condition without having the vaccine? Yeah? No, if you are walking and you see a black cat and then a car knocks you, will you say that every other black cat is a sign of bad omen? No, they're just stories too, analogies too. And somebody will go and sit somewhere and talk about it. I saw a video the other day, in some Nigerian video, somebody talking about prostate cancer, and how as a man, if you have more sex, more ejaculation, you are releasing, you see how many cells you get cancer more. And somebody sits in a media station and talks about that. And they are hosted by us without fact checking. And what we talked about, I really agree with it, that sometimes you read the stories from and listen, and you're like, oh my God, these are serious misdirection, misguidance, misinformation to the public. As KMPDU, we are very, very available to anytime you want to fact check a story, you want us to make sense for you on any health related story, please call us. We have branches up to any part of the country. We have people, and can always fact check for free, because we believe that when the masses know the right thing, they'll be sorted. Don't give airtime to people who are just going to be spreading lies. The vaccine never causes any erectile dysfunction. There are totally different ways of how that drug works. Others said, we are evangelicals in America. This vaccine is a mark of the devil. They're implanting a chip on you. See, I've heard all those stories. Mark of the devil. As in, they look so crazy, but yet you see people, like in the West, the evangelicals, the people for the church, really gave them a hard time. And I'm sure some of them have sponsors here locally. They sponsor projects and they sponsor those stories here. And since the African is probably more easy to manipulate and lie to, that's what people do. Sadly, when you are dead, you are dead. Only those who remain behind will be feeling sad about the situation. The vaccine is very safe in pregnancy, because it was a very big debate back in Kenyatta, where we used to tell women, when you come for your normal clinics, we want to get you vaccinated, because we saw that the pregnant women, the vaccine was probably taking them to a tougher journey than the non-pregnant ones, because of the changes that occur in a pregnancy in a woman. So yes, it is safe in pregnancy, and any pregnant woman should go get vaccinated. So it has no side effects. Tutazaliwa bila mapua, hapana. Those are just stories. So yeah, there's just a chance that probably a woman just missed some supplementation and got a problem, and she happened to have gotten a vaccine. Then people will try to tie it. Sometimes there's no relation. So it's safe in that. It is safe in all elderly. Actually, the elderly probably benefited more. For me, as soon as I discovered that the vaccine was available, I pushed my old parents to go get it. And I'm sure so many of you also did the same. And we can attribute them being alive today for going for that vaccine, for that jab. So it is very, very safe. Even in children, in America, they now do 5-year-olds and all that. Yeah? So it is safe. Kids have died. If you look at the data from the MOH, children have died. Teenagers have died from this. They might feel like, oh, they were 19, they're only 20. But it was your baby. She's gone forever. Going for a disease that kuna dawa, kuna chanjo. That's the tragedy of it. Or that kuna chanjo, now mtu anakufa cause hajaendea. So yeah, it is safe in that. Another fact is that it will not save you when you're already sick. Because when my brother-in-law was in his deathbed, he was like, nipatini ile chanjo. It's now too late. You get that? He had refused it before. When you are sick now, you are going down with COVID, that vaccine won't save the day. As I told you that it's supposed to stimulate your immunity to fight when the infection comes in, not when your organs are shutting down. So you take it before you fall sick. Any vaccine generally you don't take when you are falling sick. So people have talked about that the African skin is tougher. Africans don't die from COVID. We all agree that Africans die from COVID. Even in the West, the numbers in those millions of the blacks are proportionately higher than the white, based on not absolute figures, but the proportion of the population. Because if you have 1 million blacks and out of them 100,000 die, and you have 50 million whites and only maybe 2 million, so you see that percentage. So yes, there's nothing like Africans don't die from COVID. It happens. Sio ugonjwa wa wazungu, sio ugonjwa wa matajiri. It's a disease that just how you are created, maybe your genetic makeup, how your body will respond, is what will trigger you to either succeed in getting better or die. Most importantly, that at the end of the day, prevention is better than cure. So we are told that all the time. We know that we have medicine for malaria, but we still say sleep in a net. Right? Yesterday I was with some friends when they were cracking a joke. We were talking about condom and HIV. And like, condoms save lives by preventing HIV. Then he cracked a joke about this guy who was wearing a condom and the bus knocked him. Iligonga gari, nyumba, wakakufa. That's how did the condom not protect him. You see, that's the same stupid stories about COVID. That you're told this one will help you, use it to prevent, but then you'll want to twist to another unrelated incident to show why you should not get it. Yeah? I can tell you for free, Kenyans, as a union, it's from where I stand, because I'm lucky enough that I work in the hospital and I'm also in the social space. Like I advocate and we talk and listen to people complain about that. The healthcare system in Kenya right now, we're in a bad state. You guys have friends, relatives who fall sick. You guys fall sick, sindio? Hata hapa tu hapa in Western Kenya. You see this trouble you have to undergo to get proper treatment. Usipoenda Avenue, Aga Khan, blah, blah, blah. Hata huko bado there'll still be trouble, sindio? So in our system, how do we ensure that we survive all these failures? We have to put preventive mechanisms. And that's why even the world over, UHC and all that is just about now primary healthcare. They warm the children, give them right nutrition, nets, screen for cancers, and all that. Because the health burden in our country cannot allow us to go the curative way. It's not sustainable. Even NHIF will pay, alafu wanakuachilia. Even with that cover, you have that medical cover for 50,000 outpatient to 1.5 million inpatient. You guys go to ICU, 2-3 days, imeisha. In Nairobi, you say you just take a week, then you cross to Kenyatta from Nairobi Hospital. And that's why we have to really get concerned with each of us. One thing that we are assured of in this life is death. Sindio? And if you are lucky, you might just die suddenly and you don't have to bother. in your sleep. But most of the time, you have to die through the process of sickness and injuries and all that. I don't understand how people don't get worked up when systems are not working around healthcare. Yeah? And right now, we have to intentionally ensure that our community services is working, but more importantly, the primary healthcare. And vaccination is one of them. We have those vaccination drives. As a team, we are going to be out there driving this message. I hope you guys will be tagging along for those things. So those are just some few facts of the vaccine that I want you guys to understand. Now, when you come from that point of, the facts, now can we then talk about some of the myths that we have had? Because we were just in Western Kenya and we had some really crazy ideas. Because amongst the issues why we have those low uptakes, I was writing down the responses, was issue about myths and misinformation. Cindy, and what are those? Those are obvious lies that somebody presents as alternative fact. That on social media, the guys with serious following. I know of a guy who has almost 1 million followers on Twitter, and some of the things he says without being fact-checked, crazy, and people follow them. See guys who follow this masculinity Saturday vibe, Americs, and he says some really crazy things, and they pass as facts. Yes, sometimes if you go there, you'll find he's trying to fact-check him. Yeah, and that's why, as responsible journalists, we have to be ready to fact-check each and every of the things that pass across, be it from politicians, be it from self-appointed male advisors and all that. And that's why we're here. One of the myths that and some of them are funny. In case I don't say all of them, you guys are free to raise your hand and add in that list. Yeah. Some guy talks about the erectile dysfunction. Yeah, for this region, people really worry about that. I don't know why. Two, some say that it will make them more sick, gives them rashes and all that. Others talked about it being for Illuminati people, mark of the devil and all that. I talked about it being a family planning device, right? Others said that we don't need the vaccine because Africans were tough. Others said that the single dose vaccine is very strong, so they have all been waiting for the single dose Johnson. Others said that when you are injected, that part dies off, the numbing, the nerves and all that. Somebody told me that ilimongeza appetite, that the vaccine, that I used to eat X amount, now I'm eating so much and the economy is so tough. If I gave my family, if I gave my family, how will I feed them with the appetite? Others said that when you take the vaccine, you cannot take alcohol, so you choose between your social event and the vaccine. Others talks about the numbers have gone down. Actually, that COVID is now over. Ni story tu watu wanafanya juu ya pesa for government. Others said that it was purely just a business venture. Others talk about alcohol cleaning it up. You guys remember when COVID came, there were these spraying things, you walk through. Yeah? And people believed that those things were working. Everywhere you pass through, you're going through that customer. But if these are infection for breathing, how will that spray works? So it proved to be a lie. And the people stopped using them. Just shows you how powerful information is. That somebody can just come with this crazy idea, you want to market some invention, and people go for it. Until facts come, and the facts find that it's all nonsense. Yeah? So all those myths that I've put, I don't know, kuna ingine nimeacha? Yenye nyinyi mmesikia, because I'm as journalists here, you are on the ground. I'm sure each of you or one of you have done like a story on COVID. So I'm sure you guys have had some really crazy stories. Any other crazy myth you had? Yes, that the vaccine is magnetic. Of course, we know science. We know that how a magnet and metals work. A fluid, ile maji kidogo tu hivi haizi kwa iko na magnet, si ndio? And the people believe that. Any other myth you have had?
before now you tell someone. And like you say, social media will now award everybody giving their next opinion. And people are saying vaccines work typically by giving you a small dose of this virus to teach your body how to fight it off. And people read that, as in how often and then it's really not a name relief, but it happened when we took J&J. And I read like crazy for 1 season. So I went back and asked this nurse. She didn't need, because after Sinjapula and sample to that, I say I affected my stomach. And I just drink a lot of water and then it will. To date, I cannot even do a proper story on the full effects of the vaccine because I took it and I was diarrheaing and the nurse told me it was because of the vaccine. So if somebody else told me that, like you say, as a journalist, I cannot teach because sometimes you also teach people. I cannot teach someone what I do not understand.
Yeah.
So perhaps you can help us now debunk
This myth, yeah.
how really vaccines work and how we can now draw that thin line with educating our audiences on how the science behind it and how beneficial it is against what they are using on this other side.
Yeah, it's true. That's very important to note that sometimes we have the bias of the surveillance provider, the storyteller, where you think that if something X happened to you, then that's the opinion that you hold true that everybody else should believe in, yeah? And so that, yeah, you have this incident of you have the vaccine, then you're having a diarrhea, then you get that. We call it red herring. Red herring is, for example, if I'm playing soccer, then I fall down, then I start having pain in my hip. Then I go do an X-ray and I find that I have cancer of the bone of femur. Will you now say that football causes cancer? You get that? Yeah, that's what happens. That sometimes certain things happen just by chance. That probably you're just still going to get that sick without getting the vaccine. There is no documented facts that have met about the vaccine and diarrhea. But I still say that every other vaccine that was given, there was supposed to be a reporting form for anything that you felt. Then they can use that. Like, for example, in America, they talk about people are getting strokes and all that, clots and all, and they tried to study it. Initially, it was picked as something that was serious. Then it was later dismissed that was not factual. There was issue about the vaccine in children. Initially, people freaked out and they withdrew it from children, but then later it was dismissed. Yeah. So the fact of the matter is that so far, the issue that was coming from the vaccine, that some people are having allergic reactions to it, some people are having excessive reaction to it, but there is no a fact of, like, as in put out there by WHO, that the vaccine caused death or was causing death in numbers that should have made it to be withdrawn. It could have been withdrawn if it was that bad. Billions have been vaccinated. How many have died? Yes, along the way, you're always going to get 1, 2, 3 people probably dying because nothing is perfect. But any drug or any intervention that can improve your survivability by 70, 80%, I believe that's something good enough to take your chance on than to live without. So, and I still insist that as a scientist or a health journalist, when you're reporting those facts, yes, the truth about small dose of the poison, it is never just like a virus on a dungwa. Even no. They take a protein of the virus. Get that? Just the part that will trigger an immune reaction. Yeah, that's what they give you to trigger that immune reaction. So it's never like just the disease you're being given, or they give you the virus, but the dead form that can't multiply. That's what they're using to create. Or they take the virus DNA and make something that will not trigger the disease, but trigger the immune reaction. That's how vaccines are made. And they're all over the place. We take polio, we take tetanus. We do how many KP schedule? We take our kids faithfully 9 months for TB, all that stuff. Yellow fever, we take. And it's same science that we have done. We're now even having the Ebola vaccine developed by an African doctor in Congo, and it's working. So these things are not anything new that I can tell you that, oh, all of a sudden, we are reinventing the wheel. No. The other issue that I just talk about today is that 20 million people have died from this virus world over. Those are facts. And with pandemics and we're now moving towards global warming, climate change and all that kind of stuff, we are going to get more of such happening. I'm sure we're still going to get into some bacterial pandemic somewhere with all our irrational use of antibiotics. Homa, oh, ceftriaxone, nini, oh, you get that? Yeah? So what does it behoves of us as we tell our stories? How do we connect the climate change, the emerging diseases, travels and migrations, and the world being a global? There are going to be more diseases that we think were locked in certain regions, now moving all over the other parts of the world. You know? And we have to be prepared as scientists and the mouthpiece. Because one thing I know for sure is that doctors are very, very poor in talking about issues. Very many times you'll get somebody knows the facts, sees the misinformation, but like you go tell them like no. They'll never turn up for those interviews, for those shows and all that. So it's up to you as those who are blessed to have the power of the pen and the microphone to come seek those facts and tell it. I know it's not easy. I have a friend of mine, she works for Nation, she called Merab, she works for Nation Media. Yeah? She's a health journalist. And the amount of reading that she has to read and know what she's talking about. Yeah? I know they say that until you say it, explain it to somebody who is not that kind of professional, you have not yet mastered it. But more importantly, you have to say it in a language that they understand best. And that's why the consortium felt like we want to work more with mainstream and also community-based medias. Because the listenership for our target, I told that we are looking for the people living on the margins of the society. Yeah? The neglected, the poor, the less fortunate. We want them to get this information. That's why we really, really encourage to have those local stations and because you could just buy a newspaper and put that advert or go to Twitter. The MOH does it in Twitter and newspapers. But I don't think that by and large it's helping. Otherwise we'll be having maybe 60% coverage because we have dispensaries up to villages. How comes that we are not getting those numbers properly? In Kenya, as of yesterday, only 10 million of us have been vaccinated out of almost 45 million Kenyans. Partially vaccinated are 2.1 million. Teenagers are around 2.8 million. So look at those numbers. In a percentage form, only 36.5% of adults are fully vaccinated. Question is, where the other? Is this 63.5? The deaths are at 5,684 so far. The question is, do we have to lose any more lives? Because we are still dying. The disease might no longer be in prime time news, but it is still there. It's up to us to ensure that we continue bringing the issues, and I still insist that please, do not listen to the propagandists and the bloggers and all that stuff. When you hear something, just buzz me up, say that, hey, I've heard this story. Does it make sense? Do not give politicians the platform to talk about things they don't understand anything about. Mambo ya healthcare, wacha watu wa health waseme. Mambo ya siasa, tuachie wanasiasa. Mambo ya masomo, tuachie walimu. So that when you're quoting somebody, you're quoting from a source that knows what they're talking about. Because whatever you'll be shocked how powerful the media can do. It can change narratives, can change culture, can be a matter of just life and death. Just based on, like in South Africa, just the story about Zuma saying that with HIV you just go and shower and blah, blah, blah. You saw the numbers. You know? You saw the numbers. So that's how powerful. You must learn to, I'm sure that there are stories that don't deserve to be aired. Yes, somebody might have said it, but just the fact that you uplift it, no matter how funny it is, it will cause serious ramifications. Cindy, let's leave those funny videos to TikTok. So, what are the challenges and opportunities that we can work on moving forward on this the program? Victor, I told you very well that this is a pilot. This is the first time we are coming together as this team. to work on this agenda. Yeah? But moving forward, we want to be able to have people's health movement pushing on the patient side, KMPDU pushing on the health provider side, media team talking, giving the population the numbers and the facts and the figures, and KMET having those infrastructure. Get that? We really love to work close with you because we are going to start going out in the communities, raising that awareness, and with the counties, we want them to be providing those vaccines in those events. We want you guys to go out there, cover the stories, invite us to turn up for those shows and just talk about, like what I do, my favorite time, I do a lot of women health education, where you just come, we sit and talk about anything under the roof on women health. And every other week you release a 2-minute snippet, hapo watu nasikiza, and it changes lives. So yeah, we have a team in every place in Western branch, Nyanza branch, that you can give you to work with closely. Number 2, we have to keep on asking the duty bearers, the politicians, the governors, what are they doing on the issue of the infrastructure? These guys say that they have 300 ICU beds built. Are they still there? Why are we still having women being referred to Kenyatta from Kisumu for ICU beds? It's criminal. Yeah? And sometimes it's sad when I see that the media have decided to fall for the old propaganda, like now the baby Travis story. So the blame now ended up being on KNH, isn't it? Because it's easier to blame the doctor. In Kenya, when an accident happens, who do we blame? The driver. We never complain about the bad state of the road, the poor signage, the everything, the failure of public healthcare transport system to work. Because I'm sure if people use trains more and less of matatus, there'll be less deaths. But we never get to ask those questions that way. We take the easy blame of blaming the driver. Same in healthcare. We have taken the easy blame of blaming the healthcare worker. Let us hold those guys accountable. I know Zuri, you guys are the educated people who can ask those, because the population only will just consume what they see. Like I worked in a hospital in Embu where I had like 4 ambulances and I didn't have my lab working. Because the ambulance will be seen on the road and the voter will vote based on the ambulance. Sindio? But if you inform appropriately that, hey, this ambulance is just going to be transporting people to die along the way. Yeah? So ask those tough questions. On even issue about budgeting, when the counties are budgeting, doing their budgets, ask them that, how much have you allocated for healthcare? You saw in Kakamega, where for 10 years, Oparanya spent almost 8 billion building a hospital. Then finally dumps it at, National Chukweni, 10 years later, after wasting people's time and money. Were they even ever put to answer as to why that they get away with it? Right? So let's ask about just the welfare situations of our healthcare workers. We have a program called Who Cares for the Carer? Is the doctor seeing you, the nurse seeing you? Is he a safe doctor, a safe nurse? Yeah? When you hear KMPDU calling for all these strikes, you keep on hearing us about, you hear all these strikes, and do you ever ask that, why are these guys always going on strike? Yeah? Why, if the salary came to the county, why have they not been paid for 2-3 months? Where did the money go to? Why are we having the late Dr. Mogusu dying from COVID, and he was in a COVID hospital treating patients, and when he fell sick, he could not get treated himself? Those are questions that we must ask and must prick our conscience as a nation. The other issue is that I want us sometimes just to get a chance to just understand how healthcare works and the system. Because when I met Bwire, I was like, I wish we just have a session with like the health journalists to just explain to you guys the referral system, what works, what is not working, how do you need to report some of these things. Because sometimes not everybody in a white coat is a doctor. Yeah? So when you go saying that, a doctor has raped so and so, or I saw in TV about healthcare workers are selling babies. They're crazy. Yeah? Because some of those people are not even doctors. They just probably just a cleaner, a lab coat, mnasema ni madaktari. Hata mtu wa butchery anavaa lab coat, si ndio? That's the truth. Yeah? So when you must learn to know who is a nurse, who is a clinician, who is a doctor, who is a what. Because when you just bundle level daktari, you end up scaring the population. Because a healthcare worker is somebody who's trusted. You trust them with your life and all that stuff. And when you have these stories keep on running all over in the media about the negative stories about the healthcare worker, which many at times are not true. That's the truth. As in, because when you hear these stories, we call that, hey, who is that doctor who did this? And they don't make any sense. Yeah? So once you get, when you hear that issue about healthcare, call, let's clarify, then you put a factual story that will not scare. Because the biggest challenge now is getting the numbers of people seeking healthcare in a hospital, not in a, with a magician or with the, that was a Kenyaji, you know. So we have to make people trust the healthcare worker and seek that healthcare by reporting factually about that. So we are willing to work on that with you guys. Also, the issue about there are certain practices that are going on in the community that as a union we wish to work closely and as a consortium to help us change certain narratives. Yeah, I was telling Laura about, you have this woman who keeps on losing her children at a certain age and like, oh, we are Merogwa. And she's kicked from her home. Maybe these kids just have sickle cell and nobody knows. You know? Nobody knows. Until one day we learn. Issue about cervical cancer. Very common in this area. Because HIV is known to really lower your immunity and you have higher risk of getting cervical cancer. I see so many of our people from this region in Nairobi coming for that treatment. We can raise those awareness. Talk about, you go get vaccinated. It's free for children below the age of 11. 9 to 11 is free in all public and private hospitals. Even for older women, now it's available, but you have to pay. Might not protect 2% at a higher percentage like the younger ones. Because I say that vaccines work best before you get exposed to the disease. And they assume that since HPV, the virus that causes the cancer, is sexually transmitted, so they assume that if you are already sexually active, probably already infected. So it might not help you that much. But yeah, those pap smears. So I hope that we can still talk around those issues that can improve the health indices for our people. So let's also work closely with the church in a country where 80% are Christians and even other religious leaders. Let's create those awareness. Ukienda kwa kanisa waambie, give me a minute, I talk to my people about this condition. And you talk, yes, you're a journalist, you can just talk for 5 minutes and educate them on something that can improve on the health care of our people. And finally, I'd want us to be the true voice of the voiceless. I think for the longest time we have left the powerful, the rich, and the politicians get away with the microphone. Like when Kiraitu Murungi got COVID, he got whole 2 pages telling his story of how he survived. But he was lucky because he went to Nairobi hospital and he had everything being done to him. What about that story of that person who didn't get a chance or could not afford to go to the hospital? We also must give them a chance to tell their story. And I'm sure that their stories will be very powerful because they'll be relatable. Because most of us want stories that can relate to something that mtu wa kawaida anaweza sema. Because otherwise they'll think that COVID can be treated. I can tell you that it's a very, very expensive disease to treat. Very expensive. So until you hear the stories of those families who died, 4 or 5 people in one family swept off because of one funeral event, people might never know how serious things are. And those people are there, senior. You guys know those people, those families who suffered such deaths. I appreciate you guys creating time to come for this training. And I can assure you that as we continue working through this journey of this program and future engagements, we will ensure that we make your efforts not in vain. Nobody will have to suffer financial loss to come here. Utatumia pesa yako kukuja mkutano. Si ndio wenzangu? Yes, yes. So usisema ati mimi sitaenda kucover your event because sina fare. We should be able to organize how you guys come, because I believe that we are in it for the long run.
In the next
phase.
Telling the story,
and
health story,
I'm open to any question.
So. And
Yes.
not every time you hear KMPDU going on a strike is about pay rise. Because I'm told this propaganda that every time we make noise, wanataka mshahara. I can assure you as a union that we have not thought of doing a strike for money, pay rise. So you propaganda msidanganya to We're just making noise about the equipment, about the patient suffering, about drugs not being there. That's what we're making noise about currently. We're championing for patients, right? And a patient is me and you and everybody else. Any of us can fall sick. Isn't it? Yeah. 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 Yeah, for me, I say that we can fight science. We will fight it. But until we have the facts of the matter, it just remains noise. Yeah? GMOs are here to stay. There's already eating GMO. There bananas are there, GMO. This milk we're taking, those cows are fertilized. As in science, it's going to be science. That's a fact of the matter. This story that GMO causes cancer, they causes this, is all stories. What I know for sure, that why I oppose the GMO for me, is the fact that you have to buy the seeds because somebody owns it. Whoever research on it, you have to buy that science from somebody. Number one. Number two, I believe that when you make, as Africans, we have our own culture about food. We wake up, we go till the land, we harvest, and it's like a social event. But now when you tell me that I should just sit back and buy processed foods from these huge plantation owners, what about those small farmers who just have like an acre or 2 acres where they are tilling and they have to sell it? So that local farmer will probably suffer in the long term because you can't compete with those big multinationals, you know? For me, that's the bigger issue that we can debate around, how to protect the small farmer. Because not all of us can afford those seeds, can afford that technology. But about it causing cancers and all that, just bull story. The same story just about the vaccine. That you don't want something, but you're looking for a dramatic way of bringing it. Previously, the other government had said that there are certain checkboxes you have to meet before we allow a GMO product here. And what the Ruto's government did, that they removed that checklist. And that's what the noise about. Otherwise, GMOs have been approved for the longest of time in this country. So, yeah. So that's the fact of the matter. Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, you talked about the issue of people coming out. Of course, as a media, we need to sensitize people out to go for the vaccine.
Yeah.
And you have said that only 10 million people have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
Do we have enough vaccines for the remaining not one? But also, with the challenge of recruitment, you say that maybe the government or rather Kenya is not ready for the second wave. Is it the challenge about equipment or also human resources?
Could be.
Do we have enough specialists or doctors who are going to deal with that group of people? Or is it only about
the vaccines for the fact that if everybody today turned up that Michelle said my story, now let's go get vaccinated, they won't be enough. And that's why you always made noise about avail more vaccines to not just Kenya but the global south. You know, the whole debate around vaccine equity and the fight for vaccine equality and trying to fight the vaccine apartheid, because in the West now they're doing their 4th booster now. Yeah? Over here we are doing our 1st booster dose. Why are we not having enough vaccines? Yet they are expiring and being thrown away over there. So yeah, we need more vaccines, but our cause is not being helped by us also throwing away vaccines. Like Congo, DRC were given vaccines and they gave us to us, but they didn't have the infrastructure, the cold chain transport for the vaccines. Same with South Sudan. So sometimes also availing the vaccines in a setup where we don't have the infrastructure and the manpower to give them is a problem. Yeah? Of course, the issue about the numbers, we all know. The ratio of doctors to patient is 1 to 16,000. Instead of being 1 to 1,000. That's why when you go to hospital, you queue the whole day. Na unakasirika nasema mimi siwezi enda PGH tena ama county. Huko utakaa the whole day. Yeah? So those numbers are still low. An ICU bed should have 2 nurses to 1 bed. Here in JTRH, you have 2 nurses covering an entire ICU space. Mgonjwa, by the time they are going out, mgonjwa alishakufa kitambo sana, nobody even remember because they have to clean, feed, wash all of them. Those numbers are really, really low, and we have to challenge the government that healthcare should not be looked at that point of like an expense. Because now they're saying that, oh, we can't spend more than 35% of the budget on paying salaries. But healthcare must be one of those loss-making things that accounting must engage in. Because initially when health was involved, they thought that they'll make money from it. Like, you see Aga Khan making money in the hospital. So they thought that this is like something for making money. It's a very expensive venture, especially in a setup where we're focusing on curative healthcare. So we have to keep on pushing them to invest more, employ more. So that's the least that we can do for our people if you have that microphone. As in, if there's one thing that devolution should work for, is healthcare. And it's working in some regions. You go to some of these counties in central Kenya, Mount Kenya, they've really done super awesome jobs with that function. But how come that in this well belt, the LREB region, it's just chaos. Nothing works. From Umabei to Migori to Kisumu to Siaya to Kakamega to Viga. It's just sad stories in that this belt, all of it. We have to be our own saviors. Whatever.
Given a breakdown of a number, like teenagers, adults, do you have maybe data?
Yes. That's data that the last time we were talking about almost 20 doctors that died from COVID, and the issue about around 16 nurses. They're around 40. The number that sometime back when we did the data. I can still get the numbers and share them with you on the latest numbers, but yes, there have been serious deaths from our side. Some of the very good professors, one of the very good oncologists died. And you know, when one doctor dies, it's like when you cut down one tree and all the birds that shelter in that tree remain homeless. So not just that one, like the other people around will have to die or suffer because of that kind of loss. Yeah.
I have this story I'm working on with infertility in young women, and actually the number is going very huge. And I was like trying to do some background check, and majority was saying that there is something which is going around the P2 they are taking. The number of P2 they are consuming. Is it a factor which might be affecting, or it is something genetic? Maybe you shed some light on it.
Yeah, he's asking about infertility and the numbers being high and all that. Yeah, I think by and large, as the population keeps on growing and people get more informed, you're going to always interact with these numbers being higher. The problem was there before, but it was never elevated because of the media space and the social media space are equal as vibrant. But the fact of the matter that we have infections, that's a fact. STIs cause infertility, recurrent infection, then the scarring of the tubes and blockages and all that. So through that, there are going to be higher risks for infertility. The issue around P2, which is scientifically proven, the P2 is the emergency pill, guys, for those who don't know, is that it causes an increased risk of ectopic pregnancies because of the high level of the hormone inside it, causes thickening of the fallopian tube walls. So when the male and the female egg meet, they're not able to fertilize and then transport back to the uterus. So they're trapped on the tube and end up with ectopic pregnancy. That's a fact that is proven. I don't think that infertility has any relationship with the P2. But the fact that using P2 means that you had unprotected sex. And unprotected sex leads to STIs. And STIs lead to infertility. So that's probably how I would connect it. Sasa. Yeah.
Yes. I have one question. As a union, what can you comment on the government effort on ensuring that there is a much supply of vaccine so that every individual can get it?
Yeah, we have to commend government on like even getting the numbers that you have gotten. Most of Africa didn't get as many numbers through the COVAX program and all that. We got quite a number of donations and purchases, and we have to really commend them on that. The only issue that probably caused trouble, and this is the shame of the county, is that when the drugs came and are being put in that Kitengela Central Store, and now they're being to come for their vaccine, then they say that I want to fuel their collector, my results are collector. Yeah, it was really terrible that you have the vaccine, but they're not collecting them because of their purpose. They have fuel, they have collect the vaccine. So most of them end up being wasted. Or they refuse to second nurses to work in that program of giving the vaccines, walking around in the market. Yeah. So so far commendable, I have to say.
But on the people who are in the interior, the ability of them accessing the vaccine.
Yeah, not just even the people living in the interior, even the disabled. That woman, that man, that child who cannot walk, they have to use a wheelchair. Or that dumb and deaf person who cannot hear about that message. The blind person. We are all guilty that we never thought about them. How many people will carry their sick mother, that person who didn't need this and cannot make it to the center. So there are so many people in the fringes whom we have still not yet reached, and that's a tragedy. That can you imagine that person who wishes they could go for the vaccine and they can't go because maybe they don't have a wheelchair? Have you ever taken time to even do their story? Or one who got and can tell us how they got it? Or that deaf person ask them, how did you hear about this? How did you get the vibe communicated? Because they don't listen to radio, they can't hear. That's what I can always say, to include them in the conversation, because many times we forget them. Yeah. Good.
There was a time that we were informed that 3 African countries had started manufacturing vaccines. I don't know where we are at as a country. Are we making any progress in relation?
Yeah, around vaccination, there was this company, this American company, who wanted to open a plant with us, and they even signed those MOUs and memorandums and all that. Yeah. So I know that in the long term, we are going to probably be able to make vaccines. Maybe not in time for this current situation, because I think we are still to go far, but we are headed towards a point in time that we will. It's Moderna, yeah. Moderna is a company that is supposed to set up a plant here. Yeah? So yes, not for this one, at least not for now, but something in the pipeline. I'm sure about that. Yeah.
My question was tied to what Kennedy was asking in terms of how much counties are really putting into this. Because I remember about a month ago when there was that audit by the Auditor General concerning vaccine